Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
So this is my friend Lauren. Lauren, this is Shannon, a friend.
Oh, nice to meet
The
you.
background of my office. It's also my closet / dressing room.
Welcome, Shannon Missick. We're really glad to have you here.
To design your spaces to be smaller and to have multiple uses because it reduces the square footage. So actually you're doing the greenest thing possible.
But that's not actually the most interesting thing about Shannon. That's just
can we just time out for 1 second and then say that sentence over again? You and I, Jody and I have drinks of, we have adult beverages. I don't know if you adult beverage.
I do adult beverage, but I do not have one with me. I literally got Jody's text and booked it upstairs. So
do you want to go get one?
Yes.
Okay.
Back.
Awesome.
Give me a moment or two.
She is really awesome.
I just thought you and I were both drinking something and then I was like, I don't think she has something and she seems overwhelmed. Not overwhelmed, but like she could
they're doing
benefit.
I think she's a lot like Suzanne in that she can't not be doing something, some project-wise thing.
We'd love it if you'd help us out and like, comment, or subscribe. Look for the little bell for notifications for our next podcast.
This is a seltzer.
Yes, but what's the other one?
9-pin.
9-pin.
Ooh, what's a 9-pin?
Oh, cider.
Oh, yeah.
It's a local cidery in downtown Albany.
Oh,
it's 9-pin cider.
Really good.
Awesome.
Martin has he doesn't drink alcoholic stuff very often. And 9-pin has a canned apple cider that's non-alcoholic.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Loves. So I gotta
really good. Yeah. They have all sorts of different ones though. My personal favorite, they only do it seasonally, is their cranberry.
Oh, I'm sure that's great.
Food challenges.
According to one of the last people we interviewed, if we cut out dairy and meat, then everything else would agree with us just fine.
Oh, so if we give up the things that make life worth living.
Well,
I'm sorry, but you've had Joe's mac and cheese because
no, I actually
last night. It's good.
Mostly agree with you, but I'm curious about playing with the concept of reducing and eliminating to see what it does. It could be that it's the right thing to do for.
There you are. I know a number of people that have because it does actually help them.
Yeah.
I just love dairy.
I know. We were in the interview. Both Lauren and I were whimpering during the interview because really, you're gonna take away.
Are you sure?
Anyway.
You read that in how many books?
Well,
they're
really
all saying the same thing, huh?
And the World Health Organization is saying the same thing, and every cardiovascular specialist that anyone has been to is saying the same thing.
Bring up the WHO because as soon as you bring up the WHO, I'm like, okay, maybe I should think about that.
Exactly. So you're gonna have to watch the video that we post before your video.
Check out this movie magic.
Yeah.
Actually, 2 before your video.
Oh, there's a video.
Oh, right.
So
no worries. Hold on a second. Let me just. There you are.
That's more professional. Look at that. It's like,
okay, wait. So now's the perfect time. Jody, what's the other thing that's so interesting about what Shannon does outside of her house that she's remodeling?
oh yeah. No, I just find and Shannon and I haven't talked about this to any extent, but food systems and understanding food systems, which ties into a couple of conversations we've had recently with other people. And actually, I brought this book with me to Petersburg. I haven't read it straight through yet, but I've been poking around in it, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I hope we can talk about a bit: food access and food systems, and also just reflection on what it's like to be a woman and a minority in academia. What kind of burdens still exist there that we should be rooting out? And it's an honest question. I know that there were
that's an honest question, but it is a very loaded question.
It's a loaded question.
And it's up to you. It probably was. She said, "This is what I'd like to ask." I go, I feel like we should make sure that that's okay to ask for.
Well, I kind of wonder.
Because the fun thing is I actually work-ish in academia still. So my day job, the thing that pays the bills and allows me to, eat.
Be professional. Have a blazer.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so I'm a sales rep for a publishing company. I work for W.W. Norton Publishing. They do
I
trade
didn't even
titles.
know that.
Yep, they do trade titles. They also do college titles, and I'm on the college end of things. So my job actually gets me out there. I'm on college campuses about 6 months out of the year. Basically the fall semester and the spring semester I'm on campus. Otherwise I'm at home in my lovely office. The nice part about it is I can, wear t-shirts and jeans most of the time and nobody cares. And my professional look is t-shirt, jeans, and a blazer, because it's that blazer that just makes you look professional.
Holds it all together.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, literally, I'm not kidding. The first time I wore a blazer on campus, somebody was like, "Why are you so dressed up?" And I'm like,
Equity in academia.
So, to finish answering the question,
we're just getting started, Shannon. I'm really sorry. It's not going to finish.
So the thing that's really interesting about my job as a sales rep is that I am on college campuses basically at least 3 days a week during the semester. And so I get to have lots of interactions with various professors. And I will tell you that to a certain extent, this is a sales rep thing where lots of professors will just kind of be like, no, I don't have time for you, and like blow you off. But as soon as they find out that I'm getting my doctorate and I have taught, they suddenly have time for me, which is nice. Yep, I can't really complain there, but I will definitely say that my territory is Western Massachusetts. So basically the New York border to roughly Springfield, Mass, all of Vermont, and then Northern New York. So pretty much Albany straight up to the Canadian border. And then I have Fulton Montgomery Community College and a couple schools in Schenectady. So that's my territory. So it's a pretty big area. I've got about 60 schools, which is huge. And I will tell you that the professors I see of color are few and far between.
Yeah. Well, that geographic range is also fairly diversity challenged.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's 100%. So what I actually end up hearing a lot is, once you finish your doctorate, you should come get a job here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to live in Plattsburgh. I've learned that I can't necessarily say what I think. Wow. And I've also really learned that regardless of the amount of information that I have soaked up and researched and studied and have, primary source research with, some professors from, flat out disagreeing with me, economists specifically, about, the reality that food deserts, food insecurity, food apartheid is a thing.
Food apartheid.
Because yes, and the reason for that is apparently about 4 or 5 years ago there was an article in The Economist, so take that for what it's worth, that the per capita income, regardless of socioeconomic status, that is spent on food is exactly the same whether you're rich or poor. And I'm like, okay, but here's the problem with that.
Yeah.
If you're poor and your proportion of your income that's going to food is say 20%, and you don't have a car, so you can't get to the good grocery stores, and in the stores in your area don't actually include a real grocery store, and I'll explain that in a second.
It only takes one apple.
What the government considers to be a grocery store, something where you can get food, is basically anything that sells fresh food. Therefore, a place like Stewart's is considered a grocery store because you can get an apple there.
You can, okay, question, is that why they have a carousel with apples and bananas so they can be classed as a grocery? Because that really explains a lot to me.
Okay, so I am
grocery store, and also their food stamps can be spent there.
Okay, so, and do they, sorry, Lauren, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I'm really curious about if that fresh food has to be a certain percentage, or if it's just they sell fresh food, and so that one apple makes it happen.
They sell fresh food, that's it. And technically Stewart's sells milk, butter, eggs. You can get a tomato there, you can get an apple there. And the thing that's a problem with that is that basically means that anything that falls into a category like a convenience store like Stewart's, so bodegas, are considered grocery stores. And it's like, no.
Food access in Syracuse.
I'm trying to build a new urban infill home in the city.
Oh, wow.
And so
awesome.
I've been thinking, what's that?
What city?
Oh, Syracuse. Sorry, my bad.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm in Syracuse. That's right. And it's been interesting because I think a lot about the neighborhoods. And I have an area that I'm very interested in. I like the fact that there is actually 2 blocks away from the location that I'm looking at, an actual real live butcher shop, which apparently if I decide to go vegetarian will do nothing for me any longer. Maybe. But there's a corner store and I was like, I'm interested. What's in this corner store? And I remember, when I grew up, my grandparents lived in the city. They had an actual corner store. That corner store did have most of the things that you talked about, meaning like the essentials, like you needed a loaf of bread, you needed some milk, as blah, 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 so that you could walk down there for day-to-day essentials. And then you could make your, I don't know, whatever trip to the grocery store to get maybe some other things. But of course, back then, 80s and before, all of that was supplemented by other small mom and pop types of butchers and that sort of thing. So everything was neighborhood oriented. So I went on the website of this corner shop that's on, well, it's not a website, it's like a Google page where you can like upload photos. And it was like you could buy, I think, feminine hygiene products. They had lots of tobacco products.
Doesn't surprise me.
Lots of there were apples and bananas on the counter, but and then like those the vape pens, all of that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is not a corner store. Here's the delicate thing for me is that so part of what I'm doing at my house, hopefully, is food foresting. To get people to come in, especially there's a school across the street. I want them to come over and actually learn about like food, where it comes from. But I consistently drive through not just this area, but I drive all over the city. And I'm constantly thinking to myself, what's the closest grocery store? I don't know why I do this, but that is my thought all the time. Because I pass a million bodegas, like you said, there's a million markets.
Yep. So,
but there's no grocery.
My kind of town, Chicago is.
So my actual research is in the city of Chicago, and I picked Chicago for a few reasons. The first of which is it's historically rich with primary sources. So thank you, University of Chicago and your sociology department and all of the various research projects you had your students do, because without you, I would not be able to do write my dissertation. There is this data that's really, really rich and really amazing. But what's interesting about Chicago is that it's also really representative of the nation as a whole in terms of socioeconomic diversity, in terms of industry, in terms of really racial dynamics and things like that, but also in terms of segregation. If you've ever been to Chicago, you know that there's a north side, west side, and south side. The east side will put you in the lake. So if you want to be in Lake Michigan, go to the east side. But The north side is very affluent. It is very like that's where you're going to find like higher end shops and things like that. And the west side, generally speaking, if you hear about shootings and things like that in Chicago, they either took place on the far west side or the south side of Chicago. There's a reason for this, and the reason for that is segregation.
Listen up for a book recommendation.
There is an amazing book by an author, Richard Rothstein, entitled The Color of Law. The subtitle is A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing, amazing book because it really does very bluntly state that you could not have de facto segregation without de jure segregation. De facto segregation it's just like that, right? It happened. De jure is by law.
Yep.
Okay, well, here's the thing though. You also can't have de jure segregation without de facto segregation. It goes both ways. So that being said, if you are in Chicago and you are riding the red line will take you all the way from the north, all the way down to the south side of Chicago. It'll take you about an hour and a half to go literally from the far north side all the way down to the end of the red line,
right?
The 95th.
Lauren, did you go to the Green Building Conference in Chicago ever?
I did not. I have actually never been to Chicago.
I love the city. It's a great city.
Great city. But that gave me some context, is because the conference that I went to was held, both of them were held in McCormick.
Yep.
Really beautiful, but you did start to feel the change in demographic as you moved there. And
quite literally
the upper edge of the south side.
Yeah, and like what's really weird for me, especially as a person of color and a biracial person, I grew up in Saratoga Springs. Saratoga Springs is about as white as you can possibly get. And I was like one of 5 students in my graduating class that weren't white. So the interesting thing though about when you are riding the red line, if you get on at the very station at the north, you'll see all sorts of white people, like maybe 2 or 3 people of color, like not hugely diverse. Then as you go south, you go down through Wrigleyville. So like think the Cubs, you keep going, you see more and more people of color, more Latinos, more Asian people. In Lincoln Park specifically, there's a fairly large contingency of Latinos. And you keep going down, you get to the Loop, and you see that's pretty much in that area. That's where you're going to see like the most amount of diversity on the train. As soon as you get below Chinatown, it is Black people only. And to the point where I feel like I stick out like a sore thumb because I open my mouth and I speak and I don't sound Black.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I also don't dress Black. And that's not to say that there isn't money in Southside Chicago. There absolutely is, but there's also like a lot less opportunity. So the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is that the first time that I went to Chicago to do research and actually spent a decent chunk of time in the city was 4 years ago. I got a fellowship through the BMRC, which is the Black Metropolis Research Consortium. It's a fantastic program. I'm giving them a shout out because they're amazing. And they have multiple archives through various libraries. So the City of Chicago library system itself is a member. The University of Chicago itself is a member. DePaul University, University of Illinois, Chicago, you get the general idea. There's very rich archives, and they give you, well, they paid me $4,000 to go to Chicago for a month to stay there and do research, which was
very cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
What a great opportunity.
And it was, oh my God, it was amazing. I loved it.
The journey goes from artistic to racist.
But I stayed on the north side of Chicago. I stayed in Edgewater, which is really pretty. It actually looks a lot like the area of Albany that we live in, Jody. So it's like really cute but old, like 100-year-old single family homes with some 2 flat houses mixed in there. In some cases, you'll also see like a few buildings that are really beautifully and amazingly kept, but they're apartments that were built around the 1920s. Stunning stonework, stunning detail, absolutely gorgeous. There's alleys everywhere, so like you're never going to see a garage on the front side of a house.
Right.
Off the back. You also never see a garbage can. Yep, you're
Yep.
also never going to see a garbage can on the front side of the house. They're all in the back. So it's really, it's nice. And where I stayed, I was about a 5-minute walk to the L.
Mm-hmm.
So I would walk down the street, turn right, walk past a Whole Foods, walk past a couple cute little boutique restaurants, lovely library was there. There was a bank, a few bus stops, turn, go to the L, and the station itself was beautiful. It was enclosed. It was heated, and then you walked up the stairs and you went outside to the actual platform, but there were I have pictures, stunning mosaics, like on the walls and all that. So you take the L, and one day I had to go to the Bronzeville Historical Society. That's on the south side of Chicago, 35th Street.
Okay.
So you take the L, red line all the way down. You don't have to switch or anything else. It's great. And you get off at 35th, and it's suddenly metal grating and chain link fence. And in the air, all you can smell is fast food. You know, that grease?
Yeah.
That's all you can smell. So I got the Bronzeville Historical Society. Oh God, I forgot this part. The Bronzeville Historical Society, you just walk down 35th, and basically at the end of 35th, it's right there in a park that's dedicated to Andrew Jackson.
Really?
That was the part I forgot about.
Yeah.
Yeah, big statue of him and everything. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Access to?
So the thing that really like blew my mind about the entire thing, keep in mind from the L to the Bronzeville Historical Society is about a 1.5-mile walk. It was a nice day. I've walked it, no biggie. In that time, I passed at least 3 or 4 tax preparation places, a couple of gyms, lots of fast food joints, a couple of black hair, like wigs and extensions and stuff that you could get there, a couple barbershops. My personal favorite was the Popeyes chicken that shared a parking lot, I swear to God, with a KFC.
Okay. Because you can't have enough fried chicken.
I mean, truly. And I'm just sitting there going, so is a turf war like a battle of biscuits? Like, I'm confused here. Anyway.
And the sides, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I ate a KFC or Popeye.
Basically the same.
The sides tend to be mac and cheese and biscuits.
Oh yeah.
There aren't sides that were once green, really.
Actually, at Popeyes you can get greens.
Okay. And at KFC you can get corn.
Can get corn. That's not green.
I know. I know. It was my best shot. I tried.
Privilege.
I have to say this, call us all 3 out. There is a little bit of superiority in the fact that we're able to not buy fast food because each of us lives in a place where there is whole food, and I don't mean the store, but there is whole real food.
But no, you're right. You're 100% right. And, also like veganism and vegetarianism, those are privileges.
Those are privileges. That's a very interesting point. And it's not, in the last discussion, I'm just editing that video, so this is very forefront in my mind. Jay made the point that it isn't more expensive to be vegan. It's an access issue.
Absolutely.
It really is. And we did clarify that in the talk, but if you have access, the foods are actually cheaper, and she's able to feed her 3-person family on a single income, and it's not an extraordinary income. And if you have, the key is access. So that gets back to food apartheid and how we have created circumstances where people cannot access healthy foodstuffs.
Let's talk a little bit about reality.
But like the reality is that what you're calling potentially a modest income is probably the equivalent of at least two full-time minimum wage jobs.
That is
at
true.
least.
Good point.
So part of the access is that with one person home, having the ability to go to actually do these things. To Shannon's point earlier, this was something, I don't remember why I was factoring this into something the other day, but I was talking to my students about the fact we were talking about walkability. We were talking about walkability of sites. Mm-hmm. And how I was saying to them, I go, okay, so if you don't have a car, how do you get groceries? How do you get fresh produce? How do you get this? How do you get that? And I was kind of like leading them through this thought process. And I go, you have to remember that if you don't have direct access, then you need at least to be trying to build in a way that there's very frequent mass transit. I go, because that's the next best option.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, like you do, I said, do you think these people are Ubering? Do you think poor people take Ubers to the grocery store? I go, I can guarantee you they don't.
No. So the interesting thing about my walk down 35th Street was that in all of the things that I saw in a mile and a half, didn't see a single grocery store.
Wow, that's insane, because that means you can eat in the moment, but you can't bring home food for tomorrow.
Now, keep in mind, I said I literally had to pass a Whole Foods to get on the L.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that should tell you a lot.
Yeah.
The other differences that you saw, and this is to your point, is that there was actually more public transportation options on the north side than there are on the south side.
That's insane, right? There's a thing that goes on in Albany, and Shannon, you've probably noticed this. I bicycle quite a bit, and I noticed that when I bicycle downtown, if I go towards South Albany, like if I'm heading onto the bike trail, the roads there are so poorly kept.
Yep.
It's like pothole city. Yep. And so there's no investment there, and the transit stations are fewer, which boggles my mind. How do people get around? They have a bike, but I tell you, I've popped 3 tires on those roads.
That's when the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, I know. It's the people who, pay the lobbyists to talk to the governor.
That's the squeaky wheel.
Well, and on top of that, so I live in a snow belt, right?
Yeah.
Far and away, the business districts and the suburbs, which obviously have their own highway plows and that sort of thing to take care of things, the roadways are much better. Meanwhile, in the city of Syracuse, outside of main thoroughfares, basically in the business district, they don't physically get plowed. Well, I happen to know because of the way I did my master's degree while I was working, and I would go back and forth in the way that I went through a lot of the city neighborhoods that were not plowed. And, cars struggled. 2, people walk and they bike.
Yep.
Even in the winter, they bike. And both were next to impossible when snowfall is shin deep or deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy. So like even mobility during the winter time is hampered even further, and you throw in all the potholes and everything. It's just
also just look at the sidewalks. There's even it hurts. The garbage cans, if you can find one, are generally overflowing. There are fewer crosswalks. There are fewer not just crosswalks, but the button to change a light.
Yeah, we have beg buttons in Albany.
Yeah, there's basically none of those. There's also fewer street lamps.
Yep.
Sidewalk disparity.
Okay, so let's just say for a second that, everybody, all things being equal, people have the same amount of money to spend on groceries. Let's just say this. It's not true, but let's just say it.
Let's just say it. All right.
So you, Jody, you have $50,000 a year, and you live in, middle of Albany, New York, in a nice area, and you have a car. And I live in the south, the south end of Albany. Let's just say this for
Yeah,
For
sure.
instance,
Get it.
I live on the south end of Albany and I don't have a car.
Right.
Make $50,000 a year. Let's just say this for a second.
Okay.
You have a car. What do you do to go to the grocery store?
Yeah, I drive the car. Unfortunately, I don't personally, but I
you don't, because you can walk 2 blocks and get to the grocery store. But the thing is, though, is that you can walk 2 blocks to get to a grocery store.
Yes, I
That
have
doesn't exist on the south end of Chicago, of Albany. It also doesn't really exist on the south side of Chicago.
Right.
You know, literally the south end of Albany is a food desert.
It is.
End of story. It is a food desert, and the closest grocery store to it is one of the frankly crappiest ones.
It's still, from somebody who lives on the south side of Albany, it's significantly uphill.
Yep.
And about a mile away.
At least.
It's still considered their neighborhood grocery store.
Yep. Now it's at least a mile away over roads, over streets that sure there's sidewalks, but they're not super walkable.
No. And there's no sidewalk on that one road alongside Livingston Park. There's no sidewalk.
Also, like, okay, so walk that with
bags.
Let's just say that I have a kid.
Yeah, forget that.
Well, let me walk that with a kid, and then let me walk that back with a kid and a bunch of groceries.
The remnants of colonialism.
You know, so there's like well-meaning people are not, they're leaving the people that they're trying to help completely out of the equation in a very colonialistic way. And I'm not accidentally using the term colonialism, right?
It's perfect that you use that term.
Because it is. It really truly is. It's okay. So the white man's burden is to lift up everybody, and we're going to tell you how to do it, as opposed to you telling us what would help you.
This is why I don't. And sometimes I wonder if this is an excuse or a justification. But when I think about it, I actually don't like most charity approaches, because they tend to be a couple of steps removed from the people that are receiving that charity, and there is no communication. There is no understanding.
A story of squash.
There's this story about missionaries that go in to fix a food problem in a community, and they're like, we should plant here. This is the perfect place to plant these squash. It's ideal. The squash will grow beautifully. We'll teach you how to grow this squash. It'll save your community. And the people who are there are like, no, we don't plant there. Well, this is where you should plant. It's the perfect place for squash. So they plant the squash and they cultivate it for the whole season, and the squash are beautiful and big. And then the rhinos migrate through the squash patch and totally decimate all the squash. And the people who live there are like, that's why we don't plant there. You know, but the saviors never said, well, why don't you plant there?
It's time to be anti-racist.
We live in a system.
Yeah.
In a world where everybody, unless they are actively not, is white supremacist, because that's the system that has been created. Absolutely. That's why racism is a thing.
100%.
Whether you are racist or not, unless you are actively anti-racist, unless you are actively anti-white supremacist, you're part of the system and you benefit from it.
Yeah.
And you know, the stopping to take one extra second to go, you don't do this. Why not?
Why? Yeah.
We're not trained to ask why not.
A little bit of reflection.
It's very interesting though. Like everything we've talked about communities being separated by infrastructure. We've talked about economic differences. We've talked about access to food. We've talked about the cultural, actually, just I'm not going to say cultural, the structural training that has taught people not to speak up when they really need to speak up, and people who should be listening not to listen. All of those things are totally related and come back to food systems and come back to community building.
Yep. And
one of the things that one of the couple of sentences that I remember reading in this were about front porches.
Yep.
And sitting with one of the guys who was giving a tour of the community, brought them back to his front porch. And then the stories about food and community building around food actually came out because they had time to sit and listen. And it was stories that the researchers weren't looking for, but they were smart enough to shut up and listen for a while.
Yep.
Which was really cool.
Can I say, it's funny, it's not funny. I think that this is telling.
Yeah.
I had friends that lived like across town. I was in the suburbs. They lived across town, but in the city. So they were on like the west side of the city. And I always I hated taking the highway all the way around because I just felt like I was missing out on seeing things.
Yeah.
And so I took this particular path through the city that went through some majorly poor areas. And I was always charmed. The reason why I'm looking at doing an urban info project is because I was always charmed by the fact that in the summertime, when I would drive through, there was a sense of community that happened in the city because everyone was out on their porch. That literally never happened in the suburbs because everyone stays inside in their air conditioning.
Yep.
I want to be part of a community. I want to know my neighbors. I want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And I remember even when I was living in the suburbs, my first house, I made a point, none of my neighbors came to talk to me at all. And so I went to the store because I didn't have time. I was unpacking. I didn't have time to make something. So I went to the store to talk about privilege and, bought like cookies and stuff like that and took them to my neighbors' houses and introduced myself. And that's how I got to know my neighbors, is because I introduced myself to them. I brought them something.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of something different. I want to be a part of something where we sit out on our porch and we know each other.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a big deal. Like, one of the things that I love about this house, and it's a small, like it's less than 1,200 square feet. We're finishing the basement. So it's going to be less than 1,700 square feet. Woohoo.
Still plenty big.
Is that it has a front porch.
Yeah.
I've never had a front porch before.
Porch Power.
Apartment buildings, everything with some kind of real supportive idea of front stoop and front porch and community space that's open to the street. And I honestly believe that would change everything.
So I'm crawling out of my skin right now because as I've planned out my entire house, one of my plans way back in the day was to always have a front porch because of this. And because of the way that my lot is, I elected not to do it. But my goal is, since my backyard is really my side yard, and to make that like a whole community garden, does that offer the same thing?
Yeah, that would do a similar.
But does it? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
Find a place
you don't put a fence up, you're fine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I will have a small I will have a small area to let my dog out in, but other than that, no, it's open.
Now, the interesting thing about Robert Frost's, good fences make good neighbors is he was being ironic.
We should probably get into our wrap-up questions. I can't believe so much.
I don't want to.
I don't want to either, but
I'll come back for a second try because we haven't talked about half of what I know.
I know. This is incredible.
Shannon's heroes, and there are a few.
Ava DuVernay, love her. She's a director. African-American. She's amazing.
Nice.
The
film director?
Yes.
Movie director? Awesome.
Yep. Shonda Rhimes.
Oh, love me
her.
some Shonda Rhimes.
I want to be her when I grow up. I'm just saying.
I want to be her when I grow up.
Michelle Obama. I don't want to be her. I just want to be her like kid sister who she lets borrow her clothes from time to time. Just
okay, that's fair.
She's too amazing for me to be her. Let's just be real. I can't. Those are shoes I cannot fill, but I will happily wear them if she'll.
I swear, as a couple living in the house of the United States, they
were amazing.
Served with such stature and capability and eloquence and intelligence and pride.
Yeah.
I will always love both of them.
Yeah. To this day, I think my heart rate literally goes down to a nice calm level whenever I hear Obama speak.
Don't you love their voices?
I'm like, oh, everything's right in the world again.
I really love her like a lot. I strive to be as good a storyteller as she is Rachel Maddow.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, she does the opposite to me.
Yes, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
Right.
In a way that I don't let myself watch it at the time she's actually on because I will never sleep.
I will tell you, I watch her religiously, and the last couple of weeks I've been like, there's stuff going on in the Supreme Court that I can't deal with right now.
Right. Okay. So one more, because
and the last person, honestly, is one of my she's one of my committee members, Corey Graves, Kori Graves. Corey is African American. She is from the South. She has a way about her. I've told her many times that if she ever decides that she wants to give up on, teaching in academia, that she needs to read adult bedtime stories, just record them because she's got that soothing voice. But she is so inspirational for me, not just because she's a woman of color, but because there's a stoicism to her and a quiet
that's good
fire that you can see. And she honestly inspires me in a way that I can't explain. She's just honestly one of the people that I truly admire in everyday life. She's just an amazing person. That would be my list.
That's a fantastic list. That's awesome.
What should be our main focus?
I'm going to give you a big one because it's a big one, and the patriarchy. Because the patriarchy is so much more than just men leading the world, right? It's misogyny, it's racism, it's elitism, it is the sense of exceptionalism. None of that is valuable.
Yeah.
And not only is it not valuable, but it's not helpful. Like, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah.
And I really think much like the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of the patriarchy is not the matriarchy. It's none of that. It's like, can we just not have?
It's like interdependence and
exactly. And it's recognizing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's recognizing that there's interdependence and recognizing that there are interrelations. So I am not just purely a Black woman. I'm not purely just a woman.
You're not?
I am all of these, like, I'm a Black woman, I'm bisexual, I am, there's all of these things about me that I cannot separate away from my Blackness, from my femininity, from any of it. I can't do it because it's who I am. And it's understanding that, that to me is really important. So, and I honestly, the patriarchy does everything to strip away individuality. It does everything to strip away a sense of community. It does everything possible to strip away any sort of concept that there is interdependence and interrelations. And we really need that. We need that to understand our neighbors. We need that to understand ourselves.
It's complexity. Like, we're so afraid of complexity.
Exactly.
Everyone wants the top down, fix this, do that.
Because it's easier, right?
Right, but it's faulty. It's inherently faulty.
Yeah.
Is that why we're seeing such a big knee-jerk reaction now?
Yeah.
Is it fear of the loss of the patriarchy?
It's not just the fear of the loss of the patriarchy, but if you just simply look and see that our nation is getting browner, and therefore, our way of life, read white supremacy, is in threat, then you understand why there is such a huge pushback. You understand why January 6th happened. Because they fundamentally believe that their way of life is under attack. It's very similar to what we saw during the Civil War, where the war broke out because
there was a fundamental shift needed, and that fundamental shift put everyone into a gut-busting, world-dominating.
Yes, because absolute power does not concede power to anybody.
Again, there's just a prevalence of bullshit. And I think it's really on us to call people on that in a way that shows how much better things can be if we're communicating and working together and being curious about each other and just, being human. I think that a simplified statement, we need to stop forgetting that we're humans.
Yeah. And see that there are similarities and see that we all have certain struggles. Yeah. But again, it's much harder to control a group of people when you let them see their similarities and let them see their humanity.
And here's our wrap up.
You know what? There are people who see a platform that they can stand on and be the center of attention. Mm-hmm. There are people who see creating us, them gives them a leadership role. There are people who see that looking at a single issue means that they can actually understand it and the complexities are not something they have to struggle with. All of these people exist, and all of these people should not be examples for us to follow.
No.
So that's what I've been striving to keep in my mind is, yes, it's messy. Yes, I'm going to make mistakes, but it's going to be so much more fulfilling.
Oh yeah.
To actually just get in there.
Yeah.
But and that's part of what this series of videos is for me is learning about some of the complexity and you've brought
and
a
understanding too. Just starting to understand.
Starting to
be able to look at it and go, oh, yeah, we were wrong.
Oh yeah.
A lot. We were frequently wrong.
I'm not gonna lie. Part of why I study what I study is because I wanted to understand why the world saw me the way it did. Mm-hmm. Because my mother is white. She is very sheltered. My father, my parents split when I was 9, and I was never close to my dad. So I grew up in a white world, and I did not understand why I was treated the way I was. And it was me really, truly wanting to understand that led me down the path that, brought me to understand that critical race theory is a thing, why we need it, why, food apartheid exists, why segregation exists. Again, I had to learn about it.
Learn it, right.
In order to understand my own plight.
Right.
Shannon, I'd like to introduce you to some friends of mine here in Syracuse that are working to resolve food apartheid. They happen to be neuroscientists that follow the way of food and how it impacts brain function and why food deserts are significantly, extremely bad, and why withholding healthy foods from poor areas is doubly detrimental. I think you would enjoy meeting them.
I would absolutely love that. Oh my goodness, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
This has been Subject to Change. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. We so much appreciate your time. And
it's great to have you back.
Seriously, and I'm more than happy to come back. And I'm not just saying that because, I'm my neighbor. I really would. This has been very important for me.
And Joe still needs to write us a theme song. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna get on as soon as the studio's back up. I will have him write you a theme song.
Oh my gosh, would he really? That would be so fun.
He would. He really would.
I mentioned this to you before, but
you did, but I forgot.
He really would.
Maybe he can just do like a staple beat doing the virus downstairs.
That'd be amazing.
Oh God, that'd be so funny because it is a process,
It was so excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can't wait to meet you in person. We're gonna go drink some 9 pins on your front porches.
Yes, we will.